there, you can actually, even in that dead space, you can bring life back. That is one of the features of Rudu Bhairava. Like this, all the Ashtabhairavas have their own specific powers and domains. Over time, these Ashtabhairavas were paired with the Ashtamatrikas also, and as Shakti Upasana became more prominent, then the worship of the Matrikas became more prominent than the worship of the Bhairavas. But even now, the Bhairava Upasanas, those who do it, and there are people, not too many, but there are, who specialize in one of the 8 Bhairavas, Ashtabhairavas, they experience a certain degree of knowledge specific to the domain of those Bhairavas. So beyond the Ashtabhairavas, there is, of course, the very famous Vatuka Bhairava, who's Bhairava in the form of a child, an 8-9-year-old child, was extremely popular across Bhairava Upasakas across India, not only among Srividya Upasakas, but even those who are more not initiated into Srividya, but also general Bhairava Upasakas. Vatuka is an extremely popular form. Then beyond that, there is Kala Bhairava, who's one of the most largest and the greatest manifestations of Bhairava. And then finally, there is Mahakal Bhairava. Beyond Kala Bhairava, even there is Mahakala Bhairava. But Mahakal Bhairava Upasana is more, let's say that in the Bhairava Krama, it is the ultimate thing that one can do actually. So these are the different, more or less the different forms of Bhairava that Upasakas relate to. So every deity has a Vahana. Vahana is a vehicle that carries the stamp, the energy of the Devata. So Bhairava's vehicle are dogs, and dogs become extremely important in Bhairava Upasana. Eventually, if you keep doing Bhairava Upasana, it is going to transform your equation with dogs. There is no two ways about it. So to look at it in another way, I think somebody had asked me once that what is the sign that you know that a person may not be suitable for Bhairava Upasana? One of the things is that if you're allergic to dogs, I'm not saying you have to be a pet lover specifically, you go into an animal organization, but if you're not averse to the idea of dogs, you can worship Bhairava. But if you have a certain degree of resistance in your mind towards dogs, then Bhairava Upasana, Bhairava's blessing is not going to come so easily to you. You have to get out of that thing. Dogs are extremely important because eventually, as one starts Bhairava Upasana and goes to a greater depth in the Upasana, let's say if it's a scale of 0 to 100, sort of about 30 to 40% of the Upasana you can complete at home. If you are very capable, and if somebody even does up till that, you will start seeing tremendous changes and tremendous things that are not easy to explain in words. That's already going to happen, and you would be a very advanced Upasak, by the way. But beyond 40% of the sadhana, if you have to go even deeper into Bhairava Upasana, you cannot do it at home completely. You'll have to go to a more natural setting. Bhairava is eventually a kind of deity who loves settings that are more lonely, settings that are a little bit away from human beings.
Secluded,
Yes, secluded, more forested areas, cremation grounds, deserted places. That is where Bhairava absolutely loves those settings. And as one goes very deep into Bhairava Upasana, at least occasionally you will have to go to those places to do those sadhanas. Now these places, the moment you step out of the protection of your home energy is something you more or less know. You know how many people are staying there, what it feels like, etc. The moment you step out of that zone, your comfort zone, into those areas, there the equations completely change, because you have no idea what kind of forces, beings are present in those areas, what kind of energies have been invoked there in earlier times, what may be present there. It is here that various other things in the Tantra sadhana come into play. For example, you must know how to protect yourself. One of the basic things, Digbandhana, then Deha Bandhana, protection of other things, etc., even before you enter into the sadhana. And in those settings, in those exceptional settings, in fact, the whole point is that in those settings, as you keep doing sadhana, it is going to cause an upsurge of all, whether you call it fear or things like that, which are embedded into the human mind for every individual. And there you'll have to confront them. Once you confront them, you go out beyond that. This is one of the things that Bhairava is famous for. He makes you fearless eventually. Bhairava is Is Shiva who destroys fear for the Upasaka eventually, because there is nothing, absolutely nothing, no situation, human being, animals, anything else, anywhere that can cause fear. That is one of the blessings that Bhairava gives eventually. Not on day one, but yeah, eventually it comes. So this liminal settings, they cause a psychological pressure on the upasaka, and this pressure, along with the mantras, along with the process of the sadhana, they will help you to experience, break, sort of make your mind take a plunge from the mundane and the rational in which it is engaged in, and enter into a zone which is what, let's say, the occult zones, the astral planes, etc. That is where it prepares your mind. In fact, it's very interesting that the number that's associated with Bhairava is 8. The tithi that is associated with Bhairava is Ashtami. Ashtami, even with somebody with basic understanding of Vedic numerology or Vedic Jyotisha, 8th is the Rashi which causes death and transformation. Yes. So Bhairava is the deity who is that form who's going to cause a transformation, whether you like it or not. Eventually, that is the path to spirituality. Because if everything is to remain exactly as it is, there's no point in doing a sadhana. You are what you are anyway. So there, in those settings, it is the dogs who are going to be your closest friend. They are the ones who will signal if there is a danger. They are the ones who will be your companion. They are the ones who will sit beside you. They are the only ones you will be able to trust completely. Nobody else, no other animal. And that is where you understand why it is colloquially and classically understood that the blessings of Bhairava come through the way the dogs behave with you in those settings. And here is the catch here, by the way. If you have a pet dog in a house, it is obviously going to behave well with you. That is not an indication of Bhairava's blessing. A completely unknown dog in a completely unknown setting is non-aggressive to you. That means that you are suitable for going into the higher ranges of Bhairavapasana. They are same, and yet there are differences. Same in the sense, of course, there is a very famous verse in the Shiva Purana, which more or less the gist of it says that there is no difference between Shiva and Bhairava. It is only the Maya of Shiva that makes Bhairava appear different from Shiva. So that is a huge sort of statement, telling fundamentally that these are not different deities. In this regards, I would say, on a practical level, if you're doing the sadhana of Shiva or Bhairava, etc., for the sake of understanding, not necessarily something that you ask me that, produce a quote from the Shastras to prove this, I may not be able to, but there's something that actually works on a practical level. Imagine Shiva is the primary deity, but the moment he enters into the cremation ground, he becomes Bhairava. So long as he's outside of the cremation ground, when you're worshipping him as Soma Skanda, when you're worshipping him in the other forms, if Nataraja, every form is wonderful, fantastic, everything is wonderful. The moment Shiva enters back into the cremation ground, he takes on the form of Bhairava.